On this super review, let's take a look at the JLab JBuds Air. All right, what we got here is a true wireless Bluetooth earbud, not too unlike some of the other ones that we've talked about on this channel. But there are some interesting aspects of this. First of all, this is from a company JLab, which is pretty well known in the Bluetooth headphone game. And this pair is coming in at around 50 bucks, so pretty competitive price. And then one feature they advertise is the ability to toggle between 3 different EQ modes. They have a signature mode, a balance mode, and a bass boost mode. I'm kind of interested to check that out because I haven't, I've tried a number of Bluetooth, true wireless Bluetooth headphones like this, but none that have had that feature. So let's go ahead and open it up. We'll find out what we get inside the box of the JBuds Air, and then I'll give it a listening test and I'll let you know how do those equalizer modes sound and how do these compare to some other $50 Bluetooth headphones. Let's check it out. All right, we got the JLab JBuds Air True Wireless Signature Earbuds sitting inside a box. Let's go ahead and go around the box and get a couple of features up front. Let's see, first up here, they claim 14 hours of playtime, but just FYI, that is including the extra time that you get by charging these things in the case. They claim auto on connect, which is important for a headphone like this. They've got the custom EQ sound, which I talked about. They are everyday proof IP55. I think that just means sweat resistant. I wouldn't go swimming with these necessarily. And you can make phone calls, I guess, if you make phone calls. I don't. Here, just a little bit more information about those 3 different equalizer modes. There's that signature mode, there's balanced, and there's bass boost. Balanced appears to be kind of flat. Signature looks a little V-shaped, which is pretty standard for a headphone like this. And then you've got bass boost, which, I don't know, based on this, it looks like it might be kind of a warm sounding headphone. Down here in the box, just look a little bit more information about those same things that we know. Oh, here's a picture of a handsome dude. There's not much more we're gonna find out about this headphone, so let's go ahead and open it up and we'll find out what's inside this box. All right, so what's in the box of the JBuds Air? Not a ton, but it's 50 bucks, so what do you expect? You do get some literature, and this is, oh, look at that. A little sticker, that popped out at the last second. You do get some instructions, which are pretty nicely done. Look, this is a bit better done than you get with your average, $50 headphone. I think JLab it's a little bit more of a reputable company than some of the other sellers that you'll find on Amazon. And in fact, from what I can tell, this thing has a 2-year warranty, which that's pretty good. Over here, you've got a couple of, they call them cush fins or something like that. Basically, these are optional attachments that you can wrap around the base of the unit to give it a little bit extra grip in your ear. We get to the case, which is, fairly standard size for true wireless Bluetooth case. It's got a magnetic lid on it, which is nice. It's got some LEDs in the front that are letting me know the charge level of the case. And from this position, it appears to be a relatively standard case, but this thing has got a trick on it. Check this out. On the bottom of the case, it's got a cable built into it, which frankly, I think is super, super convenient. I think that's great. This will plug in just to any regular USB-A connection. So like a 3.0 connection on your laptop or into a wall charger, which this does not come with. And then you get to the buds, which are very small and lightweight. Let's see, they do have clicking buttons on them, which I think is a good touch. It's got a little bit of a rubberized logo on the outside, but otherwise mostly made out of plastic, and it's got these tips pre-installed. Interestingly, this did not appear to come with any different sized ear tips. Pardon the interruption, real quick. I thought that these things did not come with any additional tips because it's just got the smalls pre-installed on them, and this is what I got, but I did a little bit of fishing around and I found those extra tips. Yeah, that's about as much as we can tell about the JLab's JBuds Air without actually listening to them. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook them up to my phone, give them a little listening test, and compare these versus some things like the Dudios Zeus Airs. And I'm also interested to see how these things compare to some nicer sounding headphones like the PaMu Scrolls. All right, I've been listening to the JLab's JBuds Air, comparing these to some other true wireless buds that I've got, and I'm ready to let you know what I think. Let's start with sort of the physical aspects of this thing because, well, they're kind of cool looking, aren't they? This case, I actually really like this case. I think it's a good size. It's not quite as small as the Zeus Airs, but it's a little bit more compact and, in my opinion, a little bit more convenient than the Zeus TWS and the PaMu Scrolls. I'm also really into the built-in USB charging cable in these things because, well, it's just pretty convenient. You're never gonna be without a USB cable for charging. That said, there is some limitation here, right? These things, or this cable, will plug into an open USB port if you've got one handy, right? If you've got a computer handy, easy to plug it in. If you've got a USB outlet, easy to plug it in, but you do have to have that port within arm's reach. If you've got something like a USB charger tucked underneath your desk and a cable coming up, you're not gonna have anywhere to plug that cable into. So it's a little bit limiting, but personally, I think this is a good trade-off, and I would gladly take a built-in USB cable on all of my true wireless earbuds. Now, in terms of fit, I'm not super stoked about the JLab's JBuds. And a lot of it comes down to the size of these buds. These are relatively bulky earbuds, and so they fit pretty large in the ear, but I think really the biggest issue is the size of the stems, right? The stem is the part that kind of fits into your ear canal, and it's pretty large on these. Compared to some of the other true wireless buds I've worn, it's definitely the largest stem, and for me, it's definitely the least secure fit. Now, they do come with a pretty interesting attachment that they call cush fins. It's basically a rubber band that wraps around the outer edge of the buds. And it definitely makes these things more secure, but it also makes them feel a little bit bulkier and a little bit less comfortable, frankly. Just generally, I would say of the true wireless buds I've got, these are the least secure and the least comfortable. If you wrap that cush fin around it, they become some of the most secure actually, just because of the friction of that rubber gasket. But then they also, in my opinion, become a little bit less comfortable. If you've got larger ears than me, it might not be an issue. In fact, you might really enjoy that bulk, but for me, it's a little bit too much. Another couple of things worth pointing out is that if you have those cush fins on these buds, not only does it make it bulkier in your ear, it also makes it a little bit bulkier inside the case. It just makes it a little bit harder to remove the buds from the case. And then another thing that's definitely worth calling out is that the ear tips that these things come with are kind of bad. They just don't create a good seal, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that JLabs have molded their logo into the tip. So you've got this ear tip, ostensibly it's shoved into your ear canal and it's supposed to be creating a seal there, but there is a rubber molded logo that's kind of spoiling it. Now, the good news is you can pretty much put on any ear tips that you've got. I've got a different set of ear tips from a different pair of headphones installed on them right now, and it does improve it a little bit. It does give it a better seal, but they don't come with that, so you're gonna have to live with that JLab logo unless you've got your own tips. Now, in terms of general functionality, the JBuds are doing quite a bit right. I do have a couple of quibbles, but we'll get into that. The stuff that these things are doing great is that, well, like any good true wireless earbud, these things will automatically power on when you take them out of the case. They'll automatically connect to your phone or whatever device you've got them connected to. And then you can start listening to them, right? You don't have to hold a power button. You don't have to repair them or anything like that. It's generally pretty seamless. And in my experience, very, very reliable. Another plus with the Bluetooth functionality is that I found the range on these to be excellent. I left my phone here in the studio and I was able to walk around the house and I didn't have the audio cut out at all, which was actually pretty impressive. So yeah, the Bluetooth range on these, in my opinion, is excellent. Another thing that's pretty nice about these, at least compared to some other true wireless earbuds, is that, okay, they don't have a lot of buttons on them. Each bud has one button each. So it's not a lot of buttons, but they have managed to give you access to all of the basic functionalities that you'd get from, a normal pair of Bluetooth earbuds that you don't get in all true wireless buds. So for example, you can toggle pause and play. You can skip tracks, which that's pretty standard, but you can also change volume, which is not a given in my experience with true wireless buds, so that's nice. You can also, with these buttons, change EQ modes, so changes the sound signature a little bit, and you can activate Siri or Google. Now, the downside to having all of that functionality baked into 2 buttons is that it's not super intuitive, but I think if you're living with this headphone, you'll get used to it. Probably the more serious complaint that I have with the button functionality is that they don't function if you're using these things one at a time. And if you haven't used true wireless earbuds yet, that might not seem like an obvious thing that you would want to use these things one at a time, but I found that I actually really like using my true wireless buds one at a time. It's good for walking around the house, having one ear open so that you can talk to your significant other or whatever. So yeah, I do that a lot, and when you have just one of these things connected, the buttons don't do anything. Like you can click it, but it's not gonna do anything. And it would be nice to still be able to have access to pause play. Unfortunately, you don't. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit of an edge case, but I do have one other fairly significant complaint, and it's the startup time for this headphone. I mentioned that when you take it out of the case, it will automatically turn on and automatically connect to your phone, which is true, and it does it totally reliably, which is great. Unfortunately, it's a little bit slow. Like, it takes a good 5 seconds for these things to connect. And then these things are also just, in my opinion, they're overly verbose. When you first take these things out of the case, they'll both say hello to you. And then a second later, they'll say UBuds connected. And I don't know what UBuds is, but I guess these things think that they're called UBuds. They'll say UBuds connected. And then a couple seconds later, they'll say that they're connected to your phone. And then like a second later, they'll tell you what the battery level is, which seems like kind of a nice function, but by the third time you've heard it, you'll find that it's actually, well, maybe you won't. By the third time I heard it, I found it pretty annoying that every time you turn these things on, there's basically 10 seconds between you removing them from the case and them being listenable, being able to listen to whatever it was that you wanted to listen to on your phone. So generally, I found that pretty annoying. Now, in terms of sound quality, I think the JLab's JBuds they're okay, all right? These things, I'm comparing these to some other true wireless buds that are in similar price ranges, some that are a little bit lower and some that are a little bit higher, and these generally fall kind of in the middle of the pack, maybe the lower middle of the pack, maybe the bottom. I don't know. Here, let me talk about it. All right, versus the Dudios TWS. I think the Dudios generally just sound better. There's just a lot more clarity. Now, these things I would say have pretty comparable bass, so if that's really what you're after is bass, you'll be pretty happy with this. But generally, I think that the Dudios have a little bit more clarity. Versus something like the PaMu Scroll, which I think the price has gone up on those, so maybe it's not fair to compare those, but versus the PaMu Scroll, I don't think it's even close. I think the PaMu Scrolls just sound quite a bit better than these. There's a lot more clarity, a lot more separation in the instrumentation. These just don't do that well versus the PaMus, and then versus the Dudios Air, which is the lower price. I actually do prefer the Dudios Air. I do think a lot of people would prefer the JLabs because these have bigger bass. Personally, I like the sense of space that you get with the Dudios Air. They don't have quite as much treble energy. Maybe they actually have a little bit better treble energy, but definitely not as much space. And I don't know, the Dudios Air, their sound is really kind of flat compared to these, which is a little bit more V-shaped, but generally I still prefer the Airs. On the plus side, the JBuds get plenty loud. I don't think they get super loud, but for my uses, they definitely get plenty loud, and they do get louder than the Dudios Airs for sure. And then there are those 3 different EQ modes that I mentioned earlier. You can toggle them by triple pressing one of the buttons, and it'll toggle between different sound signatures, and it does work. You can tell the difference, but the difference is pretty light. And then one problem I had with it is it seems like it resets your setting every time these things power on and off. So if you find that you prefer one of them over the others and it doesn't happen to be the default, every time you take these things out of the case, you're gonna have to reset your sound EQ. So if I were to rate the JBuds Air out of 5 stars, I'd give them a solid 3 stars out of 5. I think that they get a lot of things right. This case, I love this case. The functionality is totally reliable, which is important, and that is not an easy thing to get right. I think that the functionality is reliable. It's a little annoying in some ways, but it is at least reliable. For me, the biggest issues really come down to the fit, and the sound quality it's okay. Look, it's not bad, but it's not great. I think the general strength of the JBuds Air is in that Bluetooth connection and the strength of it, as well as having access to volume controls, which, you know, not all of these Bluetooth buds give you, so it is nice that they give you this. If you're interested in checking out the JBuds Air, I do have links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video if you liked it. You can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you in the next super review.